Hey everybody, Greg Boyer, Bojunkie Media, bojunkie.com. It's time for another podcast. For those of you that have been paying attention, you saw that we had some pretty interesting news come out earlier this week with the acquisition of easily one of the most popular and well-known arrow brands in the space, Gold Tip, obviously Bee Stinger, somewhat near and dear to my heart. And so that was acquired by Escalade Sports, which is going to be under the umbrella of Bear Archery. And so Bear Archery, of course, the president is a friend and known this guy for a long time. He's a super good dude. And look, folks, when you talk about archery and you talk about the industry itself, um, those in the industry know the industry. We know that everybody tries to, be as cordial and nice as possible and do all that kind of stuff. But this dude is genuinely one of the good guys. Very, very nice guy. You're not going to go into the space and hear a bunch of stories about him, bad ones. He's a good dude. And so I'm very happy for him. I'm happy for his success. And so let's just jump right into this thing. We're gonna have lots of questions today, and I have no doubt he is going to be absolutely forthcoming. I will say this to begin: this shit just happened. So if I ask him a question and the answer is yet to be determined or whatever, he's probably just going to say it. And so if I feel there's a follow-up question, I'll ask it. But this is so fresh that, I'll do a pod. I'll tell you what, I'll do a podcast with him a year from now too. And all the questions that aren't quite settled right now will be by then. How about that? Anyway, so let's get this going. It's the president of Bear. It's John Lene. What's going on, buddy?
Well, I think we can just stop this podcast now. So with all those compliments, man, I don't need to answer questions now. Man, that was a glowing endorsement, and I appreciate that. And very, very kind words. No, I've been very blessed in my time in this industry, and like you said, I try to do things the right way. Doesn't mean they're always done the right way, but that's been my goal. And it's a small industry and very few people, and so I think that's kind of the way you conduct business. But I appreciate the compliments there. So
Well, I wouldn't say it if I didn't believe it. And
I
so
appreciate that.
have you've always, tried to do things the right way, and that you wouldn't be president of Bear and you wouldn't be having the success that you are if that wasn't the case. And so
Appreciate that.
so let's jump into this, man.
Yeah.
Gold Tip and Bee Stinger. Obviously when it was purchased originally by Gold Tip, Gold Tip has changed ownership a few times, the private equity, the splitting of the private equity, and ATK Vista. And it's kind of been, let's just be honest, it's kind of been a redheaded stepchild over there, both brands. And I'm
Yeah.
not trying to say anything negative about the folks at uh the previous owners, but we all saw that Gold Tip and Bee Stinger kind of were the third wheel per se. And it's not a tricycle I'm talking about. And so, seeing a company like, and I know folks, go Google Escalade Sports, and you're going to be like, holy hell, they have 700 brands. I made up that number. I don't know if it's 700. It's a lot though.
50 something. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot. But when it comes to archery, you're looking at the dude in the baby blue shirt with the Hoosier deal behind him. He's the guy that runs the archery stuff. Period. End of story. And so, talk a little bit to us to just to get started.
Yeah.
What I mean, obviously, I know what the interest would be, but talk a little bit. Arrows and
Yeah.
stabilizers, man. That's a good pull.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it's funny because this is not the first go round. This is actually go round number three that we've tried to make this happen. But in the last 5 years, this is number two. So, we really felt like when you look at our assortment, that what I call bullets, but arrows were really the only thing we didn't have to round out a pretty complete line of compounds and accessories, sights, rests, quivers. Our traditional line, which was a great fit here with Gold Tip as well. But strong brand, great product. It was one of those missing links that really made sense for our assortment. And I think that also we looked at all the different leverage points with, like I said, traditional. I mean, we've got the best name with Bear when it comes to handcrafted USA built traditional bows. We don't have arrows that could be in that Fred Bear signature line and Bear Archery. And the other thing that when I looked at it, and this was something coming in a little over 5 years ago, was that the one space we don't play a lot in is on that target and high end side. And it's not because I haven't been there before. It's not because we don't want to be there, but I'm not going to force anything. And we felt like that this acquisition would be a really cool first step to taking a line that has a strong presence there and then build around that, right? And that, take the arrows, take the stabilizers, and what does that mean, moving forward? Not only in bows, but in general accessories. So super excited to have it. I got to say that, you'd mentioned, the Revelist team over there, and it's the way I look at it is that I'm appreciative that they recognized this isn't a core strength of theirs and that they want to, you know, put resources in other areas. I mean, they're in all sorts of different things, right? And so I think sometimes that's what it takes is to say, this isn't us, and let's get it in the hands of somebody. And we've had a really good relationship making this happen, and we're super excited to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two main topics that I've seen people chattering about the most. One of them involves a dude that's about my height, which we will get to. The other one, right? The other one is product. And for those of you chomping at the bit, podcasting with that dude this weekend, calm down. He's not under lock and key, and no, John does not have him under a gag order, so it's okay. And so let's talk about product first.
Yeah,
I'm okay. Trying to be as nice as I can here, John, but you're gonna have to help me a little bit. Folks
sure.
don't understand that in Mexico specifically, there are certain ownership requirements. There's certain laws that they have. So it's not like any old entity can just buy a place and just assume control and ownership and running of a place, manufacturing facility in Mexico. That's just not how it works. So,
Yep.
I guess the first question, just to say it as bluntly as possible, is are you going to keep manufacturing arrows at the facility in Mexico? Is number one. So go ahead.
Yeah, currently Mexico is providing the arrows. The Gold Tip facility in Mexico is providing stuff. We thought that gap was going to be greater from the time of close, but as I mentioned somebody this morning, we've already got product moving through the factory and out of the factory, so we can get orders fulfilled and take care of customers. But currently, that's the position. You're 100% right about all the rules and regulations of Mexico. We've been in Mexico before as an Escalade operation doing table tennis and some other things. But right now, that's where stuff's coming from. I don't have all the answers moving forward to that, but currently that's where the product's coming from.
Okay. And do you have any immediate intention of discontinuing that facility and buying from somewhere that is not attached to North America?
Not at this time. I mean, I would say that we're not going to be dismissive of that. We're not going to hide the fact that, all options are open. I think that, a few things have to happen. First and foremost, we've got to get product into consumers' hands. There are back orders that people are waiting on. There's a ton of stuff that, I know we've got to get into the market. We've got to solve some problems as well. But no matter what we do, and I feel like probably the most likely answer is at some point if and when the Mexico thing has to come to an end in that facility, is there another option there? Maybe there is. Are there other options in other places? Absolutely. And that may be a multi-prong deal. I was very upfront with somebody the other day that when we looked at this, the first thing that crossed my mind was, long-term solution, getting it here in the States.
Right.
We've got an amazing facility in Gainesville. It's not for building arrows. But after weeks and weeks of looking at that, it didn't make sense right now. It's not feasible from a standpoint of what's going on. Now, we did buy the equipment, fletching machines and testers and sorters and laser machines and everything. So we own the equipment. We own the brand. We owned all that. So there's a lot of decisions to be made. Like I said, I would love to just say flip the light off with Revelist, flip it on with us, and all the problems are fixed, right?
Yeah.
But
Good luck.
yeah, it does. No acquisition works that way. We know one thing, and that is that the brand is still strong. The product is exceptionally good. It's a little bit tired,
Sure.
right?
Very
And
well
there's some
put.
stuff. I mean, so we understand that. We hope that the consumers are patient with us as we navigate those decisions, and not everybody's going to be happy, right? I mean, I think that we can solve the product problems and make the best possible product, take care of the consumer, customer service, do all that we can for the dealer, provide margin, do everything we can. And there's some people that are not going to like the decision of, oh, you got rid of this product, or you're aligned with this celebrity, or you went to Vietnam, or you went to Korea, or you went to China, or you went to Mexico. Like I can't fix all those problems.
Right.
We're going to make the best decision for the product, for the company, and for the longevity of this brand. And we're a 100-year-old company here. We've got a 93-year-old archery brand. We're not going anywhere, and I don't want this brand, which is 30 years old, to go in the dust either. And I feel like if we don't make those right decisions, that's what would happen.
Right. Absolutely. So and look, folks, cost notwithstanding, none of the other stuff that he would have to navigate, but you are not opposed to, since you do own the equipment, you're not opposed to potentially putting together a gold tip / bee stinger tube facility in America.
No, I'm not against it. And I think that the most likely piece that would happen down the road would be something that maybe specific products, could be done that way, that made sense from a core competency standpoint.
Mhm.
But like I said, I don't foresee that in the short term, but I would love to see it in the long term. And
Yep.
once again, there's so many unknowns,
Right. Right.
the economic climate, tariffs, everything. I mean, heck, it could be at some point, no matter what we do, or any company does, it may all be made in our backyard, and consumers are paying $1,000 a dozen. We don't know.
Literally, it could all change and you could have a facility next year. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's just
never
wild.
know.
So let's talk about one thing real quick that a lot of people don't necessarily understand. And that is things being made in quote unquote China.
Mhm.
Number one, folks, I can tell you this. I've said it before on the podcast. You can pay someone in China to make it as good or as shitty as you want if you're willing to pay for it, just like anywhere else. So just because something is made in China doesn't mean it's a piece of shit at all. You get what you pay for. If you call up and say, I want this gadget and I want to pay 22 cents, you're going to get a 22-cent piece of shit. If you say, I want this same gadget, but I'm willing to pay $1, you're going to get a way better product. And so what I want you to kind of illustrate to some people is everyone lumps anything not made here in China. And that's just not the case. Like you said, you have Vietnam and all these other countries that are making things for everybody,
Mhm.
but people just say, oh, China, and they lump all of the. So kind of explain a little bit, kind of, the nuances of having something made in China and then all
Yeah.
of the other countries that kind of get painted with that same brush.
Yeah, and like I said, I'll be transparent on the stuff that we do over there currently and the stuff we don't. And as the sports side, you mentioned the different brands at Escalade. We do a ton of stuff over there in indoor and outdoor games, and cornhole and stuff like that. But yeah, so Vietnam, Korea, Taiwan, Malaysia, everything gets lumped into the China bucket, right?
Right.
But just like here, there are certain core competencies that certain places have, right? It's like, oh, we're really good at electronics, or we're really good at electric cars, or we're really good at accessories. I would say that the history of archery, at least in the last 15, 20 years, has been that China's really good at the accessory side of the business. So small, intricate stuff, molded, machine parts. Taiwan has been very strong when it came to crossbows, some bow stuff, kids' bows, those kind of things. And then arrows have been all over the place. Arrows have been China, they've been Taiwan, they've been Vietnam, they've been Korea. And to be honest with you, the arrow thing comes down to the carbon, right? If you're going to play with junk carbon, you're going to get junk arrows. And that is from a quality standpoint, not a straightness or anything else. That your process of building the arrows, if you got good carbon, and let's just assume the top players do, which they should, and I believe they do, the process is where you end up with straightness and the right spine, and you end up with arrows that look good. And yeah, so that aside, but yeah, so everybody lumps in China together. I've seen some amazing things over there. I think that we've moved a bunch of stuff back here, in terms of some lower end like youth bows and stuff. I'd move everything back here if it was feasible. We're not experts in building $39 RTH sights that we can put on a kid's bow.
Right.
Sorry, folks. Like, and I would say, do we build the bow here? Absolutely. Are we the only ones still making limbs, not machining blanks, which we do that a little bit? Are we the only ones making and pressing our own limbs? Yes. Do we have a robotic facility to dip hydrographics? Yes. Like, we're doing what is core to us.
Right.
Um, and I think that, navigating those things, I mean, this is one of those weird things where I think you get lumped into a category, and obviously we sell a lot of what I call the youth recreational kids bows, the plastic composite $50 and $60 birthday presents, right? Um, so then automatically we get looped into everything is coming from there. Well, one, that's not true. But two, I've walked the walls of some major pro shops. I've walked the walls of retailers, and I'm seeing two and three and four and $500 accessories from major brands. I know exactly where they're coming from,
Right.
and it's not on this side of the ocean, folks. But I guess what I go back to saying is that the consumer, they have the decision to make, and I'm totally understanding of that. I do the same thing when I buy things, right? There are certain things I prioritize, um, and I think that people accept us for who we are, and they love the fact that we've got, a facility that was built by Fred Bear in Florida, and we're building compound bows, and we're pressing limbs and machining cams, and are we putting on a whisker biscuit and a plastic sight that comes from Taiwan and China? Yes, we are.
Right.
And that's a decision you have to make as a consumer thing. Same thing with arrows or crossbows or I mean, there's a ton of Target stuff that is made over there as well. And you just have to you got to make that decision as a consumer, but we feel like we're sticking to our core competency and then letting others help us where we can.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about that for a second. Now that you have two brands, and look, folks, let's just be honest, hunting keeps the lights on. Don't fool yourself. End of full stop. Hunting pays the bills. That's it. But you just acquired two brands that have a very, very rich history on the Target side. And so let's talk a little bit about that brand perception that you're talking about. And I love the term core competency. That is a lot more companies understood exactly what that meant, and running a company around that philosophy, I think that they would do a lot better. So congratulations on that.
Appreciate that.
But how do you see the the perception and the reputations of Gold Tip and Bee Stinger helping you? And I'm just going to say this in a way that makes sense to me. If it's not how you want it said, you are welcome to correct me. How are you, or how do you see using the reputation on the Target side and the higher end side with Bee Stinger and Gold Tip helping you springboard your other brands to potentially be perceived at higher levels?
Sure. No, I think that was framed very well. And I do think that we can do some help to them as well. I mean,
Sure.
I do believe that. But I would say the thing I've loved about, we'll take high end and Target as kind of one segment there. The things I've always appreciated on that side is that, like the Target side, it always made, like if a product was perceived well there, it was used, it made it relevant for other areas, right? And I think it was a great field to test product. Nobody is pickier than target shooters when it comes to their product. I mean, I'm not saying anything they don't already know.
Correct. You're not
Um,
wrong.
and some of the nicest guys in this industry are people I've worked with over the last 20 years that were target shooters. I mean, and I appreciate the fact yes, they're picky, super picky, right? But a lot of times it's not only their passion, their hobby, but some of them it's their livelihood, right? And so it's a proving grounds, it's a testing grounds, but it's like, oh, so and so used this, but not only that, there's all these other people that found these problems with it, and here's how they perfected it. So I believe we've got to, really double down in that area. But I do believe that when I look at the stuff that we're not doing on the Target and kind of high end side, I'd love to see it's really Bear and Trophy Ridge, but I'd love to see our Trophy Ridge line kind of divert a little bit and us to be able to build high end releases and high end sites, even in our Gainesville facility.
Right.
Um, we have great product at Trophy Ridge. I mean, we have fantastic product. We don't probably get the credit we're due there, because we're not, labeled in some of those higher end categories. But there's room for growth. I mean, we just put out a release line this last week and have some more coming. That these are really, really nice. Most of them are hunting style releases, but a couple of handheld things too that they're really, really nice. Now, I feel like this Target side and getting the customer to understand, hey, look what they did with Gold Tip and Bee Stinger, and where they're supporting the Target side and the high end, and they're putting, quality first and features. Yeah, we can trust them on Trophy Ridge, or we can trust them with, if we get to that position with Bear to be able to build some Target and 3D stuff. I believe that is not an unthinkable, path.
Right.
but it's going to take some time and some trust from the consumer. And I think that's all I'm asking is like, give us an opportunity, you know?
So let's talk about, I mean, obviously Gold Tip and Bee Stinger are both tubes.
Mhm.
They're both round cylindrical objects made of carbon. But one is propelled. So from a straightness tolerance type
Yeah.
side, the Bee Stinger just has a stiffness call out, but let's talk specifically to arrows.
Yeah.
Um, Now, I understand this hasn't been this has while you've been trying to make this acquisition for a while, multiple times, took a couple mulligans there, but you finally
Yeah.
got her in the hole. Um, so I'm not going to necessarily a year from now, I'll probably have some more in-depth arrow questions for you because I will assume you have soaked some of that in.
Yeah.
But immediately right now, what are some of the top things you think that you need to do as the president? And I don't, if you delegate this to someone or my fellow non-vertically challenged friend that we'll talk about here in a minute, what are some of the, and you did say getting product into people's hands. So I will say you've already said your number one priority with Gold Tip is getting the product out there. Aside from that, what are some of the things you've identified right now that you feel need to be addressed within the actual Gold Tip product itself?
Yeah, I think I did mention that getting product out there, and I don't mean like going out and trying to get people to support it. There's a ton of like people out there that are waiting for product
Right.
and they're in limbo. So that's number one. When I look at the product and we kind of, went item by item and looked and said, okay, well, where are they really strong, right? Where could there be some help? Where could we, innovate in an area that's not even there? So I truthfully believe the arrow itself, in terms of its construction, its durability, unbelievably tough, right? Um, it's when I use the word tired, there hasn't been new innovation in a number of years. There haven't been new product names, I mean, they're not aesthetically, there's a few models in there that are aesthetically sharp, but it's not what I would call a fancy arrow, the majority of it. So I think that's going to be one thing is that I think the consumer, at least the discerning consumer, expects an arrow that's not going to break, first and foremost. Then there's a large group that expects a straight arrow. And I don't mean like, you know, a super, super straight. I think, a product that when they get a dozen arrows that they're consistent, right?
Right.
And they are what they say they are. And then I think there's a large group, and it's getting bigger, that is expecting both of those things, and they want something that looks really cool. Um,
Correct.
and I would say, the Airstrike's very, very cool looking arrow. There's a lot of other stuff that is bland. It is meant to be crazy durable and kind of like what I say we used to be a bear. Like, yeah, that bow does everything it needs to do, but it doesn't look very good. It's outdated and it's ugly and it doesn't look like your dad's bow, right? It looks like a 1980s bow. So I think that's aesthetics is a big thing. I do think there's some areas of concentrating on sorting and straightness. We got to make sure that if we say these are within, plus or minus 2 grains, and that's what you're putting out, right? And if the straightness, if we're selling threes, guy's not unhappy if he gets some ones in there, right? But he doesn't want sevens. So I think making sure that the control is there, the precision is there. I'm not concerned about the durability thing. That we're gonna have that.
Right.
Um, and then just, changing up things, man. New lines, aesthetics, packaging. Like there's some things that are really good there, and just some things that Tim and I have already talked about some of this. Going to line item by line item. And it can be simple stuff that and maybe the stuff only Tim is going to see, but do the knocks fit? Do the components fit? Has something changed? People don't understand the arrow process, but over time, tooling changes. Things happen. And it's not from a lack of the process. It's okay, we got a tool here that's not what it was day one. It's time for new tools. And I've assured Tim and I've assured everybody we've talked to that the one great thing about being a part of Escalade is that we're so broad that when basketball's rocking, pickleball may not be rocking, right? And if archery, I mean, when archery went through some rough times, after the Hunger Games and Olympic stuff and all that, there were some companies really struggling.
Right.
Well, Bear had some struggle in there too, but we can weather the storm because we're continuing to invest. We're continuing to double down on inventory. We're making sure during COVID, we took a risk. Hey, man, we're going to build bows
Right.
and we're going to put them on the shelves because we think customers are coming. So with the backing of the company and, they've been great about, what we call a decentralized environment here. And that is, archery is archery. You know, we are left to be archery and to run this business and make the decisions that are needed to grow this business. And I've already told Tim, I've told other people, if that means we got to make new molds and we've got to, complete new mandrel sets and we've got to innovate in product and we're going to do it.
Right.
And we're going to spend some money to do it. And that's okay. Cause this isn't an overnight, oh, we got gold tip and we answered the phone. So everybody's good with it now. And
Right.
it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, exactly. So let's dig down into there. You reference getting a one or a three, or really me or a six or seven. And what John was talking about was, generally speaking, in the arrow category, your straightnesses come in 1,000ths, 3,000ths, 6,000ths, and that's basically, you can have the exact same arrow, and I don't know what the numbers are these days. I don't care. 50,000 of those can come off the line today, and X percentage of them will be 1,000, X percentage will be three, and X will be six. They don't specifically make 6,000. Oh, we're running 6,000 arrows today. It's not how
Yeah.
it works. And so explain to, and I don't expect you, out of respect for the current or past owners, I should say, I don't expect you to say what it was,
Yeah.
the percentages, but talk about the one, three, and six, and talk about kind of the percentages you would like to see, um, of the 100% per day, or however you're going to,
Sure. Sure.
what percentage you would like to see 1,000s, 3,000s, 6,000s, and why that is.
Well, and I don't have the answer on the percentages. Tim is probably a better person to ask on that side. But what I will say is that it's funny that could change, right? So in my mind, if you were in a good enough position as a company, you'd say, "Man, I want 100% in ones." But if you're selling 100% in ones, right, you're killing it.
You are crushing.
You're crushing it. So I think in general, it's been one of those things where in certain circumstances, depending on who the factory is, that if a company is needing more ones, it's always seemed to be a challenge, right? That a lot of that stuff fell into the threes. Well, and I know back at PSC when we made the X-Weave arrows, which is a totally different process, it was one of those things where it's like you couldn't get enough pros. So when you did them, that's another reason that they were $120 that time instead of 60. But then all your hunting guys, like just their general consumer coming in and buying 12 arrows, he was okay with sixes, right?
Right.
Just because he wasn't going to see the difference in $60 to buy a three or a one. Well, now you got all these sixes that you sold, the ones you can't get enough of. So what's sitting in the middle? Threes, right? It's like, so what do you do with threes, right? It's not enough of a one that you need to demand on, but you don't really want to throw them in the six match. And then there's fallout outside of six as well, which normally companies, they will have a brand or a model that is kind of like after so many months, we sort these, and yes, you're getting some ones, threes, fives, and they become a dozen arrows of general hunting arrows. But
Right.
I can't even remember the numbers that we were doing back in the old arrows or even the Trophy Ridge stuff when they did that here back 15 years ago. But just assuming that the majority of your stuff is going to sit in threes and sixes, but you better be getting you know 25% or more in the ones. And once again, it depends on the arrow too. Like if you're running 23s, you're running 25s or whatever, you're not looking for sixes,
At
right?
all. At all.
So and you like you said, you're not really going to build this nothing's what it falls out. But if you're building 246s, you know that a lot of those are going to be hunters, right? So it's okay if you have a bunch of sixes in that category,
Right.
and then you use your threes and ones. So yeah, I don't know the percentage yet. I mean, that's going to be digging into the weeds once we look at sales history from the last 4 years and really see what needs to stay and what needs to go. But I have just in talking to people, the general comment is we need more ones, and the threes are kind of this forgotten
Who doesn't?
hero in the middle. Yeah.
Right. Well,
So
and let's dig a little deeper. Let's peel off another layer of this onion, John. Um, when it comes to a one, three, and six, a lot of people don't know
right.
that if you get a raw shaft and it's 32 inches, how much of that shaft is measured to get that designation?
28.
28.
Uh,
Which part of that 32 inches, John?
yeah, exactly. And
Whichever.
most of the time the manufacturing process is that 32 cut down to 30, right? So you've kind of trimmed both ends off, or some people, I guess some people may cut off just the two on the end, but yeah, so that goes back to, and then you got the arrows are ground after that as well.
Right.
So like to be honest with you, it's crazy when you see the process or you understand the process to think that in the end, after you've taken raw carbon and built this arrow under all of these circumstances, that you come up with products that are 1,000s or even better.
Right.
It's pretty daggum cool. So
Absolutely.
there's a lot of factors there. And I think the key is that's why diversity is so important in the product line. And we're glad that we have customers that are okay with a hunting arrow that is 6,000. So we have some guys that, yeah, I want better than that, but I'm okay not having ones. And then you have the discerning customer, the target guys that, hey, this is the only thing I'm going to accept. And it's not just the straightness. You hand me a dozen arrows and they better be between this and this in terms of weight,
Right.
right? But I think you, as an arrow company, you've got to have all of that. And we said this after Trophy Ridge was out of the small diameter back, which a lot of people may not remember that it was a woven arrow, actually a phenomenal arrow, but it was weird because it's kind of ahead of its time in the fact that it was a 204
Mhm.
and nobody even heard of 204, I don't think. And everybody griped because you couldn't pull it out of a bag target
Yeah.
with an outsert. So, but back in those days, it was like, okay, you're trying to get more ones, you're trying to do this, and so when this thing kind of didn't happen 5 years ago, we looked at, okay, we still want to be in the arrow business, and what's that mean, right? And what if we developed something, and what if we did this, and looked at the whole thing, and we said right off the bat, you don't just come out and be like, hey, I'm going to build a hunting arrow and it's going to be a 246 and it's going to be a 6,000 and that's your hunting arrow, right?
Right.
That's it. You
No.
have to be all in.
Yeah.
You have to be in with components and nocks and with arrows of different, you have to be all in. Otherwise, I think you're wasting your time. So I'm glad that all those customers exist. Otherwise, you'd have piles of just carbon rods sitting around to make wind chimes, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and I mean, look, here's the thing that I tell people is like when someone asks me, what hunting arrow should I get? I go, whatever arrow it is, and they're like, oh, well, what straightness? I'll be like, well, how long's your arrow? Because if you're me and your arrow is 30 and a half inches carbon to carbon, you probably going to need to start off with the best you can get because you don't get to trim off very much. If you're a 26-inch arrow out of a 32, you can chop off each end independently, assuming it's just a straight tube, folks.
Sure.
And you can find the best 26, 27 inches of that arrow.
Yeah.
It's a different scenario. So for folks out there, look, man, if you've never seen how a pre-preg arrow, which is what gold tips are, if you've never seen how they're made, they literally cut a shit ton of strips of carbon and they wrap it around a steel pipe. For lack of a better, that's what a mandrel is. It's just a long, solid rod of steel, and they wrap it around it, put some plastic on there, do a bunch of other shit, and then they pull all that off, and you have an arrow. And then they grind it. It's the
You made
crazy.
it sound easy.
No, it's not easy at all.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's
To,
crazy.
to get the product you end with, it is amazing. Like I said, with what you start with and the process, which I won't call it crude because it's not crude,
Oh,
but to think what you can do, but then you're trying to control, I mean, inside diameters, right? If your inside diameter is off, your components are shot, right? The outside, on some stuff, you can fudge that a little bit, right? I mean, you could, and obviously your spines change with the amount of carbon and thickness, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Like it's there's a lot that goes into it. And I'll say from a standpoint of even myself, like I can't hang with any of these guys that shoot the way they do. I really like to shoot stuff, and I love hunting, and I like shooting 3D targets and messing around, and but that fancy target stuff, I can't hang with these guys.
right.
So when it comes to arrows, it's like to me, I'm not going to be the guy that can tell you a different, like, do I try to get my weights right and a batch that is consistent? Absolutely.
Right.
But in terms of, I get a batch that's a couple grains difference in 12 arrows and it's a 340 and they're, a 3,000 straightness, is that going to be fine for John Lene, killing stuff? Absolutely.
Right.
Right. And then there's discerning people that's not good enough. And I totally get it.
Yep.
And so we've got to make sure that we build stuff that is discerning enough.
Yeah. So following up on the gold tip and bee stinger perception and
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
yeah, and what is kind of where those brands have thrived. And so before I say this, they give away a truck at the Total Archery Challenge. What logo's on that truck again?
It's bear.
Okay, just checking. They
Yeah.
give away a truck at the TAC event. got a bear logo on it. So there's a hint. It's not that they were there. It's not that they're refusing to be publicly involved in events. But let's talk about events because Gold Tip
Yeah,
and Bee Stinger,
sure.
they're in everywhere. They're at every NFAA event, every IBO event, every ASA event. World Arch or USA Archery is kind of a different ball game. But
Sure.
um, do you? And of course, I'll talk to Timmy about this weekend, whether he knows or not all the way. But I would imagine that's why I'm going to ask you. Do you guys have any plans? Because this is a concern of a lot of people.
Sure.
Do you guys have any plans of cutting back the events, we'll just say, for Gold Tip and Bee Stinger that people are used to seeing a presence at?
It's going to be the opposite. And I told Tim this, and I think everybody realized that Tim probably wouldn't have come over had I said, hey, we're not going to do contingency. We're not going to, grow shooting staff back. We're not going to show up to ASA, IBO, NFAA, Vegas. That's not what Tim's about, right? I mean,
Right.
that's his field, and I feel like where he's a huge asset to us. So no, so all of the things they're doing, they're going to be there. And to be honest with you, we're going to have a better presence at some stuff as well. I mean, TAC's a perfect example, right? That's something that we have from the beginning been a huge part of.
Right.
And I mean, what better for TAC than an arrow, right? I mean, Gold Tip needs to be there. I
Right.
think it's the only people that are actually making money at those things, are the arrow companies. So so it's like, like it's a
How many
no-brainer
people do you
there.
think got that joke?
Anybody that's put an arrow in that bucket.
Or in those trees?
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
next level, folks. That was
Yeah.
next level joke. Anyway,
Yeah.
continue.
So, I mean, but you know what? That's awesome, right? And I think that it makes sense for us to really get involved there, with the Gold Tip and Bee Singer side. And then, yeah, do I know 100% where we would pull over Bear or some of the other stuff into the tournament side? Not really. I mean, really, right now it's going to be Bee Stinger and Gold Tip. But I also think there's another place that we thrive in that they may not be involved in, and that's with the kids with the S3DA stuff.
Sure.
Um, I think that's a market that also we could be present with. So no, we're doing the opposite, man. We're doubling down. We're going to do the events. You know, Tim's going to be heavily involved there. We've got a great staff here that's the other thing he's got now, people to be able to help and assist. And, you can't be everywhere all the time. And so we can divide and conquer. And that's with, multiple trailers with a contingency program that we're going to load back in. We've got to build a shooting staff back. We've got some great people out there shooting gold tip. But we need others, and we need, bigger voices and stronger voices. And so we're going to do all that.
I, I mean, John's not wrong, folks. I mean, Gold Tip was fairly dominant on the 3D scene for a long, long time. Good product, and Timmy's efforts takes two to tango. Timmy couldn't have did that with a piece of shit product. Let's just be honest. But the last number of years, there has been some, there's been some sliding there, and I don't think it's. I can't speak for Tim Gillingham, but I've known Timmy a long time, and I guarantee you, it wasn't by Timmy's choice.
No, and I think it eats at his soul.
You would think correctly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I've had
yeah,
those conversations where I don't speak for a good 10 minutes, and Timmy just
yeah.
does Timmy, which is good. It's
He wants to
therapeutic.
win, man. He wants to win, and that doesn't just mean when he's shooting on the weekends, right? I mean, he wants to win with this brand, and I want people involved that want to win, and I don't expect these shooters. I don't expect the shooters and we'll call it the paid professionals and the amateurs just to automatically take me for my word, and like I said, just flip a light switch and be like, well, yeah, awesome. Gold Tip says they're going to have a contingency program. I'm back. That's
Right.
going to take trust. It's going to take time. It's going to take product. And that's all I ask of people is just like listen, give us a chance, and make your own decisions. I don't need somebody else making your decision for you. I don't let people make decisions for me when it comes to where I spend my money and what I do. Make your decision based on what you're seeing and who you trust and who you want to be partnered with.
Well, I mean, look, man, I'll just tell you right now, John, following through is because Gold Tip and Bee Stinger already have the brand recognition. Everybody knows the products. Yes, getting some products retooled and getting some more things on the product side going. Yes, absolutely. but folks have already seen it from those brands. So as soon as you allow Timmy to do what Tim does and those companies under your leadership actually follow through, I think you're going to see a lot of people come back that direction simply because I don't think, I know for a fact, a lot of them have left because Tim wasn't allowed to execute on things that had gotten Gold Tip and Bee Stinger to where they were.
I get it.
The bottom line.
Yeah.
And so let's talk about our friend Timmy. And Timmy is an icon in the sport. He's one of our personalities. He is a wealth of knowledge. He's a character by any. I love Timmy. Timmy is awesome. There's only one of him, which is probably not a bad thing. And so when I told John the other day, and look, folks, full disclosure, not knowing where Tim and John are in their negotiations, which are, I guess, done or whatever, I asked John if it was okay if I brought Timmy on to do a podcast this weekend. And he said, yes, of course, if you have enough internet bandwidth to record that long of a conversation. So he knows Timmy well.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to come right out and ask, how likely would you have been to flip the switch on this purchase if Timmy wasn't going to be involved?
It was one of the early discussions we had here, that I thought it was imperative. And one thing that I got very early approval on of, we've really never done anything like that, right? And there's some uncharted waters we can discuss there as well. But no, I feel like that he is the face of this brand. I know a lot of people that run brands that they're kind of the face. That's not me. I don't have a really pretty face to run a brand anyway. But I'm here to try to do what I do best, and I don't need to be Bear, and I don't need to be Trophy Ridge, and I don't need to be Gold Tip and Bee Stinger, but Timmy is Gold Tip and Bee Stinger, and people trust what he says. He's got an incredible wealth of knowledge. I mean, I'll never learn what he's probably forgotten when it comes to arrows, right? And this isn't a guy that's ever complacent with, oh, I got a perfect dozen arrows and this is it. I mean, he's like, the guy's got some ideas that are, I mean, they may be out there sometimes, but he's right.
Right.
Like, how applicable is it all the time? It may or may not be. But I mean, he understands it. And I just felt like, not only from a brand perspective, but from a technology and engineering, we're building a team here, but I want these guys to have an expert to be able to bounce ideas off of and to improve. And, to answer your question, I thought it was imperative, and I got sign off super early. Tim and I had conversations early and then kind of gapped because, didn't know what was going to happen. And then, to be honest with you, I was just super excited when he said, man, this is my brand. I put 23 years of my life into this thing. And, I appreciate his trust in me. And when I just told him, hey, we're going to do everything we can to make it succeed, understand that that's not going to be for lack of doing that.
Right.
And he's like, I'm in, man. And so
Yes.
I be honest with you, I would have been a whole lot more hesitant in moving this thing forward without Tim, because I like I said, he is who he is, and he pulls a lot of weight in this arena.
Oh, for sure. I mean, Tim Gillingham and Gold Tip were the very first sponsor I ever had in like 2002. Ever. We were at a tournament in Bend, Oregon, and I was shooting pins, and I shot I shot 3D really good back then, and I actually beat Tim. And he called me over to his truck and he goes, hey, have you ever shot Gold Tip? I said, no. Tim Gillingham opened up he had like drove down from, I don't know where the hell he was, Alaska or whatever. He had drove like all night to get there, freaking got on his Dodge Cummins, got his fuel filter changed, and it was leaking, and he's underneath it. It was 100% Timmy. But he literally opens up his bow case, scoops out a handful of 22 series and a handful of X cutters and hands them to me and goes, shoot these for a couple weeks and then call me.
That's awesome.
But yeah, you're not going to get that with that's 100% Timmy. And so let's talk about you did briefly hit on his role.
Yeah.
Obviously he's going to be running the staff. Duh.
Right.
How involved would you say he's going to be, not only in the development of new product, but also in helping monitor and make sure you guys have more 1,000 shafts coming off the factory line than you do six. Like, are
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys going to fully integrate him into all of it, or what's the
That would be my goal. Obviously, the shooting staff is an important piece to me because I mean, like I said, that the target and the contingency and the staff is a huge undertaking. But I expect to be able to use Tim what he's also really good at, and that is, how do we debug problems, right? Like you said, like if we're not getting enough ones, or they're not being weight sorted correctly, or we have stiffness issues, or I mean, knock fit. I mean, it's like I said, he checks every mold of the knocks,
right?
the cavities to make sure that like those are the kind of things that I want him ingrained with. And one of the cool things we do here at Escalade that I've never had the privilege of doing anywhere else I've been is that every product line we have engineers attached to it, and we have product managers attached to it. Now, understand, the product managers are not the people that design the product. Are they heavily involved in it? Sure. Product managers are guys that are day to day making sure from start to finish this thing does what it's supposed to do. Meaning that's everything from communication, packaging, setup stuff. We use Asana, but all these Asana projects back and forth, like it's a task. And then everything from they're in charge of, profits and losses. They're in charge of setting up part numbers, you know, listening to the reps. Hey, we need these points. Okay, we're going to build these points. And then they work with engineering. But I've had the resources to be able to say, I'm not taking an engineer and distracting him over six product lines, or a product manager that's, one day trying to set up traditional bows and the next day he's trying to figure out how, to get arrows, built. So I want those guys to have a resource, like Tim, to be able to bounce ideas off of and to fix problems and say, hey, I don't think this is it. I don't think we're headed the right direction here. So I'm hoping to immerse him as much as possible. And I know there's a lot of questions about, the bow side. Timmy is shooting Matthews. Like he is a Matthews guy. This is, like I said, a very weird separation that I've never had.
Right.
But that's why we run Gold Tip and Bee Stinger separately. That's why, we try to keep Trad and Compound and Trophy Ridge, even though it's branched here, different people, different tasks. Like, and I think that, Timmy's an upstanding guy. We've talked about this on, hey, I understand you've got this going on, right? So we just got to find that line, but it's Bee Stinger and Gold Tip, and he doesn't have any conflicts there, and I don't expect to have to use Timmy outside of that.
Okay.
So,
Well, I had literally just shifted my screen over to the right side because I have the bear line of bows pulled up on the left side. So obviously, you just answered the question. Is Timmy going to be shooting a bear? So not at the moment, unless he wants to
no.
do some trad stuff, which he
And
does.
to be honest with, and like I said, to be honest with you, we never even discussed that part about it.
Right.
Like that wasn't something we discussed. I was pushy about. That it's not our strategy. We
Right.
don't have the product. I really at this point I got too many irons in the fire to say, hey, what if I could get Tim from Matthews and develop target bows? I have too many other things to worry about. Sorry, target shooters. Like I just you're not looking at me for that, right? I mean, you're not and us. So no, he's got a great deal there, and he's very well respected as well, and I respect those guys, and so we want to keep it that way.
Absolutely. So let's talk about bear real quick.
Yeah.
Um, so I did see a video the other day that you guys have some, and look, folks, I understand that the current flavor of the month in bow stuff is quote unquote some form of cam tuning. Whether you're using the limb, whether you're shifting the cam, whether you're using an old school yoke, whatever it may be, right now bow companies are really looking at, in my mind, it's a matter of simplicity and saving time. Not only that, with the number of DIY people we have now, I don't know how many of them I would want on a spike press swapping
Full
out
axis.
yeah, yeah, like
Yeah. I get it.
so you guys have a new I'm just going to call it a cam tuning system,
Mhm.
but from what I could tell, I haven't had a chance to see it up close, but it looks like you have something integrated into the pocket. Let's talk about that real quick.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, it doesn't seem real new. This has been something I would say, worked on for a few years now, and we're talking about this with somebody else. It's one of those things where we do get dinged on our high end bow is not only the tuning piece, but our high end bows are a little on the heavy side compared. I mean, especially if you're comparing some of the carbon stuff. Now there's 5 pound carbon stuff out there.
Right.
But as we were developing this thing a few years ago, two things. One, the system was a little more crude. It did exactly what this system did, but it just didn't look as refined.
Right.
And then what comes with this system is a heavier pocket.
Mm.
So with that, when you strap it on a 5+ pound bow, it just wasn't the right, like it wasn't right. We wanted it more refined. We wanted to make it, I won't say foolproof, but a little bit more like, hey, you can only push it to this degree.
Right.
Um, and then also when we're sacrificing weight. So yeah, so yeah, I guess what was it, 2022, 2023 is kind of when we said, okay, well, we'll have a product and we'll work on this. So the cool thing about this pocket is that it on the underneath side, it's got tick marks to show you exactly how far you're moving this thing. But it's got a set screw in both sides of that pocket that go into the bottom side of the limb. Now, the cool part about it, like I said, it's very, very user friendly. Obviously, you don't need a press or anything to do it, but it does have a set screw and a pad, and it has a stop to it. So you can only take it so far.
Right.
So this isn't one of those things. Hey, man, just put a wrench to it, and at some point you're gonna drive it through the limb. In testing, the cool part about it is that we found about an inch and a half change in tear from left to right. Um, I would say that, and the guys and I were talking about this yesterday, we kind of recommend an inch is about that differential you want to mess with. Anything over that, you've probably got some other issues, whether it's arrow rest or the right arrow or whatever.
Right.
Um, but it can affect that. And then obviously the top to bottom side, you in theory could loosen both the top set screws and move in both the bottom set screws, but you're really just changing your your anchor, right? You're changing your loop height. So really cool system. You know, there's a couple of us in here that on certain cams and certain setups, we consistently get these like, you know, 1/2 to 3/4 inch left tears. And the early onset to this thing was putting folded up business cards underneath the pocket. And that was even cruder than the, but did it do what it was supposed to do? Absolutely. But that goes back to the, you know, just a cool system. So
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of things we want to add on the cam side. You know, we did some big changes. It won't seem like much, but on this Echo cam, which is a fantastic cam, it's very intuitive now to change the draw length. Before you needed a manual. It did what it was supposed to do, but if you didn't have the manual, you were going to screw it up.
Okay.
I mean, it needed like A plus 2.5 and move the stop, move the module. Now it is lasered, and it's like if you screwed up putting it on 28.5 and 80% let off, then I got some questions.
Yeah, exactly. So, so
Um,
the so the cam tuning technology is called the QPC quad pocket control. And so by the name quad pocket, so is the limb pocket split? So
No,
that
it's still, I mean, there's quad adjustments with the four
okay.
individual set screws. So
Uh,
it's not like you move one set screw to the other side and it's all or nothing. There's four set screws in this thing, but the pocket is still one machined piece.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, you know, it's funny we talk about, you know, other people in technology and how they're messing with pockets and stuff. And then I think back to the days of, I think it was 2005 or 2006 when I was at PSE and we had a Mach X that had two pockets, and you could adjust that. So the thought process has been around for a long time, and people have adapted it different ways. But we felt like this was the cleanest, but also the best way to keep consumers from really not messing it up, but overdoing it, right? Like, you know,
Messing it up was the right word.
yeah, I guess I'm trying to be nice.
Just messing it up is 100% the right word. And look, man, it is. I just had this conversation yesterday. I was working on some bows for some guys, and we were talking about all of this, regardless of what the system is. And what I was explaining to some people was this is just my opinion, folks. And remember, opinions, yeah.
Yeah.
So it was that, you know, yes, it makes it easier for the dealer. Yes, it makes it more time efficient for the dealer. But the other side of that coin is Joe Bag of Donuts can walk into an archery shop with your system or anyone's system, and the dealer can spend, you know, 4 seconds adjusting it and get the perfect tear. But when that archer goes home and makes a couple bad shots and or thinks he sees some funny arrow flight because his arrow went from light to shadow to light to shadow, and he thinks his arrow's doing this when it's not, and he's like, oh, well, I saw the dealer just put a wrench in here and do this, so I'm going to do that too. No, archers screw things up. It's just what they do. And so hearing that your system has basically some, a
The
stop.
preventions.
Yes, I
Yeah.
was going to make a reference to a Windows for Dummies, but yes, I mean archers mess with things. I mean
Yeah.
that's why in the manuals you have to say how many turns you can go out on the limb bolt before it blows up in your face.
Yep. Yep.
That's just the nature of our business. I mean, back when you and I were kids, owners' manuals on cars talked about adjusting lifters. Now it says don't drink the battery acid.
So yeah, it's weird that that part's changed, but yet on the archery side, I do feel like we're getting a whole lot more. It used to be the shade tree mechanic. Now, I mean, on the bow side, it's your at-home guy, right?
Yes,
And I said that's not all bad, right? I mean, and I think guys, the difference that makes it at least doable now is that information is everywhere. It's not all good information, but you can get online, and if you want to find out how to do something, good or bad, or there's four different opinions, it's out there.
right,
And I think that I go back to saying if I was going to build a bow for me tomorrow, it'd be pretty daggum simple. It'd be a draw specific binary cam, and the sucker would rock at 28.5 inches, and I'd get 350 out of it, and I wouldn't have to mess with anything, right?
right,
And only thing I'd probably like is just an adjustable cable guard to have a little bit of tuning. But these guys want stuff, whether they're going to use it, they're not going to use it, they're going to overdo it, they're going to question themselves at home. They want these features, and if you're not giving it to them, they're buying bows with the features.
correct,
I mean, I think of all the bows I've shot and used over the years, and there's stuff on there that I'm like, oh man, that's a really cool feature. I never use it,
right,
but I like the fact that I could if I wanted it.
correct.
So you
Well,
got
and
to do it.
yeah, well, and I mean, look, especially, I'm like, let's just be honest here, especially for your brand, integrating features like this into bows that are in the $1,000 to $1,200 range, which is where your higher end bear bows are. When you're integrating features like this that effectively accomplish the same things as $2,000 bows, that speaks volumes to you and your team trying to, like you said, maximize your core competency and integrate features that are going to help people make your product the best product it can be for them. Because a lot of people out there don't necessarily understand that, any bow, whether it's $1,000 bow or a $2,000 bow, is only as good as the person who's shooting it.
So,
And so when you have a mentality like you have, which is, I mean, just the core competency thing is genius. Um, when you see a company like yours integrating features like this that a lot of people, aren't going to necessarily be expecting, because now you know how it is nowadays, John. Everything's price point driven. Don't compare, and I
yeah.
say it even all the time. Don't compare apples to oranges, and I agree with that. But at the same time, I think what you're doing with some of these technologies is very, very good. One other thing I wanted to talk about that is relatively divisive. Um, I don't have my personal opinion on it is probably more around FET than anything else, but whatever. And that's crossbows,
Sure.
and they're not going away.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, New York just passed them, and I talked to dealers out there that are like, people are coming in for crossbows,
Yeah.
lots of them. You
Yeah.
guys have a crossbow. It is, and I'm gonna have to phone a friend here and ask you to describe it's not one of the straight limbed older school crossbows. It's one of the very narrow, and I don't want to name drop other brands, but
Yeah.
it's one of the tight looking ones.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about that.
So I will say, yeah, we've got some crossbow stuff. We continue to support our customers, all that, but that's not where our focus is at. When we go back to the core competency thing, it's not. I would say, the long-term play with us in crossbows is still probably up in the air. And it's not because I don't think it's a big part of the industry and that I don't respect the customers that want to hunt with crossbows, but um, in my mind, what comes along with it is just uh, more than I want to focus on.
Copy.
And I think that what's amazing is you can build a top quality crossbow. Your problems are still going to exist, and a lot of times it's with the consumer.
Mm.
And it's just one of those things where what's worth the squeeze here? And if I can invest in, you know, put money in Gold Tip and Bee Stinger, and I can invest in trying to make our bow lines continue to be perceived in a higher light, and we can make investments in more machinery in Gainesville and growth there, that or another acquisition. I feel like that's where we're better spent. Than really focusing on the Crossbow. It's not that I don't like them ish. I mean, it's kind of a love-hate relationship.
Right.
And I think anybody that's in the crossbow business will tell you that. But also, all your really successful crossbow guys, it's all they do.
Right.
They're in the crossbow business. That's all they do. Um, and it doesn't matter if they're $3,000 or they're $300. Inherently, you're going to have some problems, whether that's your fault or not.
Right.
Um, so it's that's a tough one. I mean, it's like I said, it's one of those things where we do have a few models still, and I think we're going to play where it makes the most sense for us, and it's not at 299.
Right.
There's no money to be made there. I'll leave it to somebody else.
Right.
And I think that we're going to like I said, we're going to focus long term on areas that make sense. And
Absolutely.
um,
So
yeah,
you just mentioned if that means other brands. Y'all still shopping?
I think we're always shopping.
Okay.
And I will say this, anytime it's funny, I love reading the comments online when people buy brands or sell brands and, the perception of what somebody got for their brand or what somebody paid for their brand. I mean, when I'm out of this industry, or I'll probably die before then, that I'll write a book
Right.
about the things I learned in the archery business. But no, I think that this goes back to it has to be a fit for us. Um, it doesn't have to be and when I say a deal, it has to be a good deal for both parties, right? And it doesn't mean somebody got it on the cheap. It has to be the right deal. But more importantly, I mean, there's deals out there, but if they don't make sense for us or they don't make sense for integrating it into our model, or having the resources to do something with it, I'm not interested. There's still some gaps in what we do, and it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure out where those gaps are.
Right.
And long term, I hope that we can fill them. And I think it's most likely going to come from acquisition, but yeah, if I told the board that, I was saying that, they'd probably say, "Hey, why don't you digest this one first?"
No, 100%. 100%. Well,
But I think there's always opportunity out there, and there's some brands out there that, I love and respect, and there's a bunch of them I'd love to have, but it's got to be the right fit.
100%. And so, last thing, then I'll let you go. I know you're a busy man. I appreciate you spending some time with me today. So, talking about the upright bare bows specifically, you've
Yeah,
mentioned Gainesville, Florida several times. We've talked about making product in Mexico. We've talked about making product all over the world. And basically, folks have to, if you're manufacturing in 2025, you're getting some shit from everywhere. I don't care. It's just nuts or bolts or whatever. But specifically to the upright
yeah.
airbow conversation, are those are manufactured in Gainesville, Florida, correct?
Correct. Correct. So yeah, we do a couple of like obviously the plastic bows that people are familiar with, little Braves, Apprentice, but we don't do those.
Right.
We have a couple of like entry level little on card youth bow type things, which our competitors do the same thing, imported.
Right.
But once you get above that, so like our Royale bow, which is our kind of do everything 5-year old to 13-year old, all made in Gainesville, legits, cruisers, all the way up. Yeah, I mean it now, like I mentioned earlier, do little Trophy Ridge accessories come from other places? Yes.
Right.
Um, and just like everybody else in the industry, we get our metal from the same places, whether it's, Italy on forgings or CNC and on die cast stuff or whatever. So um, it's the really accessory pieces, and then we get our strings from headhunters. We're very open about the relationship there, and they've done a phenomenal job, especially with the number of bows that we put out of that factory. But no, I always say we have an unbelievably cool facility, not only from the standpoint of what we do, but also the history there. With Fred Bear, and we got 150,000 square feet that sits right on I-75 in Gainesville. I
Wow.
encourage people to come down, see our machining facility, to see our hydrographics and tumbling, and we're pretty open to a lot of that stuff. There's very few closed door areas there in what we do, but I've gotten a question many times. It's like, I think the reason people don't believe us so I just tell them, oh yeah, we just put a box, put a adapt bow in a box from China and just send it over. Like, no, not even close.
Right.
Uh, but there's like, well, I don't understand how you can do it and nobody else does. And I said, well, it's not one thing. I mean, it is a 150,000 square foot facility, but it's investments in, if I need another fourth axis machine, we buy it.
Right.
If we need to invest in, I mean, we've got an unbelievable robotic hydrographic facility. If it comes to, we've done through lean manufacturing multiple times to say, we've got to set up cells so that this cell does nothing but build legits all day. That way they're right, they're efficient, and we can get out 20% more bows.
Right.
So it is 400 things on a bow in order for us to find $10 so that we don't have to raise it 50 at retail.
Right.
And so, like I said, I encourage people. I'm upfront on what we do and don't do with different suppliers, whether that's, like I said, whether that's Taiwan or China or here. And it's been a great model for us. But yeah, you want to come see some bows being machine dipped, tumbled, and powder coated and strung up in Gainesville, be my guest.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, hey man, I really appreciate you spending some time with me today. I was obviously I've been hearing about this for some time, and with, normally, not every time, but normally I'm not the most excited when I see private equity, you know, buying things up because I mean, not to put you on the spot, but what other private equity firm has someone with your level of competency and passion for our actual sport running the companies in our actual sport? And that's a rhetorical question, Farley. You're probably
Well,
shouldn't.
I'm going to answer one here. Could
Let's
just
go.
one correction. This only comes from the fact that I've been at all three. We're a publicly traded company, so Escalade is traded,
Nice.
and it has been since 1972.
Okay.
Like I said, we're a 100-year-old company. So here's the difference. And I've worked for private. Worked for one, awesome deal there for 12 years. I've worked for private equity, and I've now worked for public. There are pluses and minuses to every one of them.
Right.
But the thing I love about this company is when you look at the investment strategy, PE normally they're in it for a 3 to 5 year deal, right? I mean, their goal is to build up a brand and turn it for profit. Maybe another PE group picks it up.
Right.
Private, they're in it for the long haul, but they have a hard time navigating the ups and downs of challenges.
Right.
But from a public space, I mentioned all the benefits there, but we're not a buyer and seller of brands. That's what I've been telling people about, Gold Tip and Bee Stinger. And I think that's probably one of the cautiously optimistic things that I'm hearing is that we like that it's in new hands, but we're a little bit concerned.
Right.
And I would say, one, give us time, but look at the track record of Escalade with Bear Archery now since 2003, Trophy Ridge after that. Look at, I mean, Stiga table tennis. Look at Gorilla basketball goals. Our darting system. We've got Brunswick billiards. Like we have these brands that we buy and they become part of this company for, once again, 93. I mean, we got 90-year-old companies. We got some that we've owned, for 50 years. So
Nice.
that is the goal. I mean, this was the original Indian archery and XI, right? I mean, this was Indian archery. So we're not getting rid of it. We're not dumping stuff. We buy it, we build it, we hold on to it.
I
Um,
love
and
that.
that's the plan.
Yeah, dude, I love that. I literally just took for granted and assumed that Escalade was a big giant private equity, but that's
Yeah.
freaking amazing to hear. And I mean, look, here's the thing. Whether it's private equity or public, who you have in control of that group of brands says everything. And so the fact that they have you in that spot and they're trusting you to make these decisions with your experience and your passion for the sport, I think that plays a huge role in why a lot of those brands that you're talking about and why Gold Tip and Bee Stinger, I think, are going to be successful.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's our goal. And like I said, I appreciate everybody's support on the Bear side and on, customers past and future for Gold Tip and Bee Stinger, and we're going to do our best to do them right. So.
There you go. All right. Let everybody know out there where they can keep up with some of, if not all of your brands on the World Wide Web.
Yeah, so beararchery.com, you'll find our profile stuff. You can go to goldtip and beestinger.com. Those sites are still up. We're going to be actually building new sites here, more interactive, more informational, just kind of updating those. But yeah, check us out. all the social things that all you guys do. I don't know, my marketing manager JC, she's a lot smarter on that stuff than I am, but LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, what all the other, I don't think MySpace. I think I'm still on MySpace, but Tom's my only friend. So, um, so yeah, but it's all out there, and take a look. And if you got any questions, gold tip, bee stinger, anything, give us a call here, and I promise you we'll at least point you in the right direction.
There you go. All right, everybody. That's John Lene right there. He's the president of Bear Archery. He's going to be overseeing gold tip and bee stinger moving forward. And like I said, folks, this is one of the things, and we have many examples, and I'm super excited to hear. I'll put it this way. I'm more excited that John Lene is going to be overseeing gold tip and bee stinger, but I'm pretty excited to hear that Escalade is a publicly traded company as well. For those of you, in our space that have been around for more than 5 minutes, if you were around before all these companies started coming in and doing what they've done, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But bottom line, who you have running these brands speaks volumes about what you are as a company. And that's it. I don't even need to say anything more about it. So John is a great guy, great sense of humor, and look, man, he just knows his stuff. And that's it. I am excited to talk to Timmy this weekend. No, folks, Timmy's not going to know every single aspect of everything he's going to be doing, but it's always a good conversation with Timmy anyway. But I'm excited for this. I think it's going to be great for gold tip and bee stinger. Obviously, I have a soft spot on my heart for bee stinger. And I think it's going to be good for Bear. I mean, seeing what Bear's doing with their bows, and one, they're made in America. That doesn't suck ever. And the price point is right. And they, I'm just looking at I'm literally looking over here right now, and the first boxes I see for bows say dealer exclusive. So if you're a dealer and you want to be protected, I mean, we didn't even talk about that. We didn't talk about the rep groups. All right, fine. Stop bugging me about it. I'll have John on another podcast later and we'll talk about all this other shit. But this is a great acquisition, I think, for our sport, for our industry. I've already talked to Timmy about it. I talked to Timmy about it before it even happened, and he's super excited about it. He already knew who John is, and this is going to be a good one, folks. It's going to be exciting to see. It's going to be good to see gold tip and bee stinger specifically kind of climb back up that ladder of I guess what we'll just call standing in the sporting side of things, because they really broke a lot of ground over there. So that's going to be it for the podcast today, folks. Appreciate you guys. Hunting season is upon us all. If you're in the Midwest or the East, and I say this every podcast, and I'm gonna till January, if you're out there hanging tree stands, put on your GD safety rope, put on your harness, whatever mechanism you use to climb up and down the tree safely, put it on first. First. No one needs to be taking stage dives out of trees onto their face. It doesn't work out for humans. It's not what we're built for. So please just take the time. Don't be selfish. Put on the damn rope. Think of yourself, yourself and your safety first. Period. You guys know the drill. We want to hear from you, not about you. And as always, everybody, love, peace, and chicken grease.